Welcome to the Matthews Mentality Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Matthews, and today we're joined by one of the most celebrated athletes and inspiring human beings in sports history, Scott Hamilton. Scott is a four-time, you heard that correct, four-time world champion, four-time U.S. champion, and Olympic gold medalist in figure skating, known for his unmatched artistry, innovative footwork, and iconic backflip on the ice. Scott is more than an athlete. He's a fighter, a survivor, and a beacon of positivity. Ain't that the truth? Beyond the rink, Scott is a best-selling author, commentator, philanthropist, and founder of the Scott Hamilton Cares Foundation. He is also a three-time brain tumor survivor and cancer advocate whose life journey has inspired millions. Today, we'll talk about what it takes to become a champion, not just in competition, but in life, from his early struggles with a mysterious childhood illness to the pinnacle of Olympic glory, to his battles with cancer and brain tumors. Scott's story is one of resilience, faith, and purpose. Before we dive in, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Matthews Mentality Podcast and let someone in your life hear this powerful message. Scott, welcome to the Matthews Mentality Podcast.
Wow, what an introduction.
Self-actualization, like what is it? And then when you got your gold medal, you're laughing. When you got your gold medal, I was telling Aiden this, your son, a couple months ago. He's like, I really want to be the UFC champ. And I was like, yeah, dude, that'd be amazing. And he's like, I'd be so happy. I said, yeah, for about 3 weeks.
10 minutes.
He's like, is it 10 minutes?
For me, it was 10 minutes.
I would say it's about 3 days.
Yeah.
Like there's about 2 or 3 nights you go to bed and you wake up, you're like, and then you're like, okay. I mean, I'm certainly grateful. And when I think about that thing I did, I'm happy. You get this on air. This is good talk. I'm happy. Are we recording, Zach? Yeah, I'm happy, but why am I not just perpetually happy? Why am I? Because we tell ourselves like, okay, for me, when I meet the woman of my dreams, which I did, I'm the best wife ever, I'll be happy. And you're like, you're happy for a couple of days, you're happy in my marriage, but you don't just like constantly happy.
You settle in.
Then you're like, well, when I have my kid, I have my first kid, my son, beautiful little boy, perfect. I'm like, I'm happy. And for about 3 days, I was like, man, and then I was like, okay, like, well,
Now it's normal.
And then it's like, when I have X amount of money, when I have this house, when I retire, when I win a championship, I won a college championship, not a gold medal, but like, and then I'll be happy. And you're happy for a couple of days, maybe minutes, hours, days. Yeah. All right, 10 minutes. And then you're like, and that 10 minutes is awesome.
No, it's amazing.
And there's actually a downside to that because it's a high that's hard to replicate. And, people, a lot of times it's kind of like, in many cases, people's peak in their they peak in life through their athletics and they like chase it the rest of their life and they're constantly feeling disappointed. But, what I found is I was happiest when I was pursuing those things that I deemed meaningful.
The journey is way better than destination.
That I said, okay, if I have this, I'll be happy. Well, it was actually the pursuing and the work and the blood, sweat, and tears of my teammates and the long nights and the early mornings and the training and the discipline to the point now where when I get with my teammates from college, we get together, we don't go like, man, remember when we won that championship? Never say it.
No.
We go, man, remember that one camp was so brutal?
Yeah.
We had those 3 practices a day for 28 days and everybody's like, yeah, dude, that sucked. And you're smiling. You're like, you're saying it sucked, but clearly it brings you tremendous joy.
Endured it.
Because you endured it.
Yeah.
And
and it's something that most people, it's rare. Like how many people are actually going to do that? Like
very few.
A percentage of the population. Yeah. Like 0.0.
Well, yours, like you could actually count them.
But it's that it's the journey that's always better than destination. And then people just think, oh, that's cliche. That's cliche. It's like, but you look back and it's the destination is just like, it's kind of like that scene in Vacation where they get to the Grand Canyon and they walk up and they just like,
yeah.
Clark. Okay, back in the car, and it's sort of that, right?
Okay, good talk, Russ. Get back in the car. Yeah. I was talking with your boy Aiden, and I was like, you'll be happy for 3 weeks, and then you're going to have to figure out what is next. And it's speaking of MMA, to give the audience some color here, we're just rolling in, is So Scott's son, Aiden, is an aspiring mixed martial artist. Is that safe to say?
It's safe to say.
Super talented, crazy talent. He beats me up every week. Keep in mind, this guy's much smaller than me. I mean, he's jacked, but like he beats the hell out of me every week. And so I don't know, I watch the sport, all that. I'm not an expert, but if anybody could do it, he could do it. But we were having this conversation and I said, yeah, you'll be happy for 3 weeks. And then what next? And I said, there's a great line from Khabib Nurmagomedov, the famous Dagestani MMA fighter.
Best ever, probably.
Yeah. Him or John Joe, but there's such different weight classes. But Khabib never lost. And he just said it's hard to be hungry when your belly's full.
Yeah.
And, right now when you've never won a championship, you got that your empty belly. You're like, but when you have that belt around you, it's hard to wake up early and train the way you did when you were aspiring to get that.
But it's getting through, at least for me, and my journey was just really weird, because I was a perpetual, massively accomplished loser for a big chunk of my skating life. They used to do the figure eights, so I didn't like doing them. And when you don't like doing something, it doesn't like you back, every time.
That's funny how that works.
And I always tell my boys, especially Aiden, it's like, what's the greatest strength? And they go, lack of weakness. It's like, I had to learn that. You have to figure out where you're weak. If you want to be competitive, you have to figure out where you're weak and you need to get strong. And once you're able to do that, you're harder to beat because, once you chip away your weaknesses, then
you don't have any holes.
That's it. So for me, it was like, I didn't like doing figures, so I'd fail the tests all the time. And I'd fail and I'd fail and I'd fail. And I'd pass the test a week before competition because I think they felt sorry for me and they knew I needed to pass it in order to compete. So they'd get through. And then regionally, I'd be pretty good. Sectionally, I'd be average. And then nationally, I'd be an epic disaster. My first nationals, I'm 14 years old. I'm skating in front of 17,000 people. They put the little boys event right before the championship ladies final, of which the most popular woman athlete in the world, Janet Lynn, was competing in her last nationals.
A little bit of pressure on you.
Only. And I took to the ice and I joked that I rose to the occasion 5 times. I fell 5 times.
5 times.
In a 3-minute program.
Oh, man.
And I came in dead last. And we went to a party afterwards and there was a kid that was kind of my age who just did really well in pairs and singles. And he was, we're just at this party and we're knucklehead teenagers. And he goes, hey, go over and get me a beer out of that. I go, it's right there. Get it yourself. And he goes, no, I have something to lose. You don't.
Oof.
And I remembered that.
Low blow.
But it's just like, those are little pain points, right?
Yeah.
So I go, okay, maybe I need to start paying attention to things, right? So the next year I go back to nationals and I come in 9th again. But there's another guy, there was a 10th guy there, but he wasn't very good. He probably shouldn't have been there. But so I basically came in last 2 years in a row. Then I went up to the junior level, beat 2 guys. And I can only imagine the locker room talk. It's like, wait, Hamilton beat you? Really? Are you going to quit? Like, it doesn't get any worse than that. And then my mom came home with a cancer diagnosis, cheerful. Hey, everybody, family meeting, let's go. And she just started talking about how she's going to have some medicine that may not make her feel good, and she may have to have some surgery down the road, but she's going to need some help around the house. And then she said...
This is when you're 14 years old?
No, this is 3 years. I'm like...
Okay, so 17?
I'm 17, just about to turn 17. And she just said, and you? And I said, yes, ma'am. And she said, we're basically bankrupt. We'll get you through one more year. It's a senior year in high school. We'll get you through one more year of skating, and then you're going to go to college next year. We're both professors at the university, so we can afford free. But that's going to be your life. Last year, make it great. And I said, okay. So I went back to where I was training in Illinois, and I had a new coach, and he scared the out of me, like scared me to death. And I just figured it's probably easier to submit and just do what he tells me to do, and that way I'll stay out of trouble. And so I just did whatever he told me to do, and for whatever reason, that year was sort of like a jump. Like a
breakthrough for you?
Breakthrough of like
skill.
Landing triples, doing run-throughs. Like I just took a kind of a quantum leap. And I got to nationals, and my mom showed up, and her arm was in a sling because they just removed her left breast and the inside of her left arm. And she lost all her hair to chemo, so she was wearing a wig, and she had the biggest smile on her face. And I just asked her, what kind of drugs are you on right now? Because this does not make sense to me at all.
Said some good
And she
ones.
said, no, everything, I am as happy as I've ever been. And you go out and have a great time. And when we're done, we'll have a lot to talk about. So I said, okay. So I just gotten my first triple, and I was going out to do it in the long program and the warm up. And my coach grabbed the back of my pants and he pulled me off the ice, which is unpleasant to say the least. And I go, what? And he goes, don't warm up your triple Salchow. I said, why? And he goes, because we don't want to know if it's there or not. I just put it in the program. If it's there, it's there. If it's not, but we don't want to know that in the warm up. And I said, okay, that's good coaching, I guess. So I ended up going around, did my first jump.
And this is the warm up.
This is in the performance. I
Okay,
didn't warm
so,
up the
right.
triple Salchow. So I go around and do my first jump. That's great. And then I'm setting up the triple Salchow, and I figured, well, it's my last competition ever. Might as well just throw it.
Go for it, yeah.
And normally my view would be of the ceiling, after my hardest jump in the program. And this time I was like, I landed it swish clean. And I got so excited I forgot to mess up the rest of my program, and I won junior nationals. So that year I'd caught the eye of a coach who that year was coaching Dorothy Hamill to an Olympic gold medal.
Mm-hmm.
And he had found a sponsor for me. And my mom had met the sponsors on the way to nationals. So I was still like loser guy when he got the sponsor for me, but I ended up finding a way to get on the top of the podium of the junior nationals. And then I went to the best coach in the world with a sponsor, and I turned 18, and I didn't even know what I was doing. I was so confused and lost because I was an 18-year-old boy that was totally distracted and just messed up and just hanging out with probably the wrong people, and maybe not the wrong people. Maybe I should have been hanging out with more people that had the same goals as I did.
Yeah, I mean, you're 18.
Yeah, 18, a knucklehead. And I went to the nationals. I don't even know how I made it to nationals that year. And I came in 9th again. And it was awful because I just was unfocused and just all over the map. And it was really embarrassing. And then 3 months later, my mom succumbed to cancer.
I was going to ask, what was the conversation? She said, hey, after go out, have fun, and then we have something to talk about after.
After was, there's a sponsorship for you.
Okay.
I met them on the way here, and they remind me of my parents, and you're going to love them, and they're going to love you. And now you have an opportunity to keep skating,
And forgive my ignorance, the sponsor is basically somebody or some organization that will pay for your training. Is that?
It was an older couple who were very wealthy. She was an entrepreneur, and he was an attorney. And they didn't have any children, and they loved figure skating, and they just hated to see that somebody that was showing promise have to give up their dream because their parents ran out of money when they had plenty. Mm. And so they were investors in the rink where I was going to skate in Colorado, and they just loved skating, and they just wanted to pour into young people. They wanted to invest in young people, and they loved skating. So they took care of all my skating expenses.
A finance question. Are there winnings when you win a competition? Like, do you get a check that you then split with the sponsor?
No,
or it's really just, I don't want to say a charity. It's not a charity, but like, it's really just goodwill.
Goodwill.
Yeah.
And again, they're making an investment. Like, the more I understood them, Frank and Helen were their names. And Frank, he passed away a year after I met him, and I loved him. I just loved him so much. He was just a funny, quirky, awesome guy. He always had the same jokes at restaurants, and he was just the best guy. And I just really admired him, and I was just drawn to his humor, and it's just the way that you could tell he was a man of quality, but at the same time, he was just very humble. He would always shake your hand, and in his hand was butterscotch candy, and he would do that with everybody. I would pocket full of
You'd
butterscotch
like slap you
candy.
some butterscotch?
It was butterscotch candies, and that was just the way he was. He was very funny. And Helen was more focused, and she was sort of like disciplined entrepreneur. She had investments all over the world. And she loved skating. She loved it. It was her favorite thing. And so they made a decision to get behind me, and I became a son to them. Mm. And it was right after that first year on the senior level, my mom saw me, just mop up the ice, come in 9th again. It was a few months later that I'm in her room till about 3:00 in the morning with my brother, and she wasn't conscious anymore, and she was really just clinging to life. And then the next morning, my brother-in-law at the time woke me up, and he said, "Your mother is gone." And that was the day that I had to grow up, because I love my mom more than anybody in my life. I just loved her. I just admired her, and she had every quality that she just gave everything to her kids, everything. She never did anything for herself. It was all going to her kids. So I went for a walk in our backyard, and about 2 hours later, I came in with the answer that I don't have to live with the reality that I've lost my mom. I can live with the opportunity that I can carry her with me every single day and try to become the young man that she always dreamed I could be.
It's an ultimate response to adversity. I mean, when you're losing your mother at a young age, 18-ish, and did that just happen naturally? Because you hear first of all, you hear the 5 stages of grief.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you processed all 5 in just 2 hours.
Probably eventually I did, yeah.
Eventually. But then, I think it's safe to say not everybody handles grief the way you did. It sounds like you turned it into something very positive and productive in your own way.
I think in my being, I just knew that I was failing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I had ambition.
When you say failing, push back. I'm not putting words in your mouth, but it sounds like you just weren't living up to your potential.
Right.
Is that what you mean by failing?
And other people saw potential, but I didn't.
Yeah.
But I was trying to get a jump that nobody was doing at that time, and I wrecked my hip, and my mom took me to the doctor. It was swollen from just above my knee. I mean, you're a football player, you know about that.
Mm-hmm.
So just above my knee to above my belt line, it was swollen, and there was a cyst floating in a bursa sac, so it would show up in weird places all the time. And I'd just push it behind my hip.
Hips are really bad.
Yeah, it hurts.
Everything is within the hip, yeah.
So I kept trying to get the jump, but I'd come down a quarter turn short, and so my blade would land sideways, and I'd just crash on my hip time and time and time again. So my mom came out to Denver for the surgery, and they drained the hip, and they did all that. And then the next year, I made it to the nationals, and I failed. And then it was right after that I lost her, and then I just decided it was time for me to just grow up and just try to strive to be who she always thought I could be. And so I called my coach, because he saw me as kind of a loser, as sort of somebody who's given opportunity, wasn't living up to his expectation. And he lost interest in a way. Mm-hmm. And I just said, I'm coming back, and I really need you to understand I'm a different person. And he goes, yeah, right, whatever. Yeah. So I got back to Denver, and I drove him so crazy with ambition that he sent me to Canada for the summer. He just said, go up, get your programs done in Canada, and when you get back, we'll figure the next thing out. And when I came back, I had the jump that hurt my hip. I had it like perfect. It was
what was the jump?
Triple Lutz. Okay. And then I was doing other triples that he'd never seen me do before, and I had these programs that were going to be winning programs. And he got excited, and I ended up that year. My mom saw me come in 9th. The next year I was 3rd, and then I'm on the world team. And then 2 years later, I'm on the Olympic team in Lake Placid. And then I'm 5th in the world. And then right after the world championships in 1980, I'm ranked 5th in the world, and the top 3 guys retire. All I had to do was wake up, and I'm ranked 2nd in the world. It's pretty good.
I was going to say, man, I'd love for some of my competitors to retire.
Wouldn't that be great?
They're getting old. They should be retiring. Yeah. Fortunately, I don't have a physical sport, so you can play well into your 80s almost.
Or just hang on, right?
Yeah, just hang on. But no. Yeah, so okay, so now you're number 2.
Yeah, so what do I have to do to be number 1? And remember, I came in last in novice when I fell 5 times that year. The guy that I have to beat was a genius at compulsory figures, and at the same age as me was on the podium on the championship men level. I had to beat him. And the only thing I think of is I have to fall in love with figures. So I did. I just, my coach would give me a big chunk of ice and just stay there and just keep working them, and I'll be checking in on you, and I'll be, giving you corrections. And it just turned into this game that I just fell in love with, and I got better at figures and went to the nationals that year. And freestyle I had down. That was something I could train. I just felt good about it. But it was something about the figures. I just needed to
walk the audience through what figures means.
Figures mean that you're tracing circles on on virgin ice. So the ice is just made. There's no marks on it at all.
Figure eights.
And you carve these little circles into the ice, and they have turns in different places. And the turns are very specific because you have on your blade, you think of like an upside down U where you have an inside edge and an outside edge. The tracing you leave on the ice will tell the judge whether you're on the inside edge, the outside edge, or both.
Wow.
So it's very specific. And you do turns, right? So if you do like a 3-turn, you're going on your outside edge forward, and then you turn to an inside edge backward. And so there'd be the gap in the very top of the turn, which is the gap from going from your outside to your inside edge. But if there was no gap between the two at the top of the turn, that's bad. Like that's...
I didn't know they looked at all that.
Yeah.
I thought they just look when you're in the air spinning.
No. And so the other one is you're on an outside edge going up a circle, and you're turning at the top of the circle facing out, and that's called a bracket. So you're going up on a forced outside edge, and you're coming down on a forced inside edge. And so the very top of the turn looks like this. It's like, call it bunny ears. And so if there's flat, or if there's not the bunny ears on the top of the turn, that's bad. But the more you get hooked on checking out your progress, and you can see your improvement, you can see the tracings getting closer, you can see the fact that you're able to line up these circles now on virgin ice without any guidelines or anything. It becomes this inner game that's just so addictive that I just got hooked on figures, and I just couldn't wait to do them.
Speaking of getting addicted to figure skating, you started training around 9. What led you to the sport?
I was adopted at 6 weeks of age. So, and I was kind of a smaller baby. So growing up, I figured I was going to be smaller.
No football in your...
No basketball. No dunks.
So adopted at 6. Did you ever... have you ever met your biological? Didn't go down that road?
No, I'm grateful, but I love my parents so much that I just felt it would dishonor them to look.
Sure.
So anyway, 6 weeks of age, growing up, age 4, I stopped growing completely. I stopped processing food. I looked like one of those starving kids, a distended belly, no muscle development.
Something wrong.
Something wrong.
Okay.
So for the next 4 years, I was in and out of hospitals. Started in Bowling Green, went to Toledo, then I went to Ann Arbor, and then Boston Children's.
They just couldn't figure it out?
They couldn't figure it out. So they finally, I had every symptom of a disease called Shwachman-Diamond syndrome. Dr. Shwachman himself was looking after me, and after about, months and months there, he said, he has every symptom, but he doesn't have the disease. Go home. Live a normal life, see what happens. That's the best advice I have for you. So I went home, and our family physician, he lived 3 doors down, and he came over and he goes, okay, I'm having an intervention right now. So my parents' name were Ernie and Dot. He goes, you're taking a morning off. And they go, how are we going to do that? And he goes, I wouldn't come here if I didn't have a plan. Brand new facility at Bowling Green State University where they're teaching children how to skate from 8 to noon every Saturday morning. My kids are a part of it. I think it'd be a great place for him to go and get socialized with well kids and just be and do all the stuff. So I went to the rink, and I was like everybody else, hanging onto the wall, and then let go. And then pretty soon I could make it all the way around the ice without touching the wall. And pretty soon I could skate as well kids. And pretty soon I could skate as well as the best athletes in my grade. And for the very first time in my life, I had self-esteem.
Yeah, I was going to ask, you picked it up quick, and for the first time you felt like, hey, I'm good at something.
I'm not the smallest. I'm not the weakest. I'm not the sickest.
Not something wrong with me.
I'm not the S-test. Yeah. I'm not like less than everybody else. I can actually do this.
Was that a fair way to describe you up until that point, as not having a lot of steam?
I had friends in the neighborhood. I mean, we were normal kids.
Yeah.
We just did, but I always felt less than because, I was, we'd play football and I'd get wrecked, or whatever. I just didn't have the strength or the size to compete with anybody. And
in terms of your mindset at that age, were you aware you were adopted at that age?
Yeah, they told me as soon as
you were aware. And did that ever mentally affect you, like feeling?
Yeah, I get teased. It was unusual in my hometown for having an adopted kid in the class, and so of course it's blood in the water. They just go after it, right?
Yeah, it was a different time.
So I go, you were adopted. It'd be like teasing on the playground every day. So I went home and I told my mom, I go, you told me being adopted was really cool. And she goes, it is. It's magnificent. And I go, then why am I getting teased? And she goes, just say this next time. It'll stop. I go, are you sure? And she goes, 100%. So I go back, and sure enough, they start teasing me again about being adopted. And I said, yes, I was adopted. My parents actually chose me. Your parents got stuck with whatever came out.
Yeah, that's a good one. I figured there's something like that.
It stopped. It ended it. But now I'm a male figure skater in a small town where all the other boys are playing hockey. How fun is that? Hey, Twinkle Toes. Hey, ballerina on skates. Yeah. Hey, go show us something pretty. And it wasn't like there was glass back then. It was chain link fence. So there was nothing stopping the teasing coming through. And so I told my mom I was going to play hockey. And she said, no, you're not. I said, yeah, I am. No, you're not. Yeah, I am. No, you're not. Yeah. And so the one of the coaches on my team was one of the college players. And he said, all right, I'm going to teach you how to protect yourself. And he taught me how to impale kids with my stick. He taught me how to, sort of like slide the stick with my glove and just start like ribbing people, and taught me how to basically be a dirty player. And I just didn't like that. Mm-hmm. And so I'm in a corner, and I shouldn't have been in the corner. I was in the corner and I was fighting for the puck, and I saw one of my best friends look at me. He had that look in his eye, like, I'm going to hit you so hard. And I got wrecked, and I heard something in my neck pop, and I just collapsed on the ice, and they just made sure I was okay. And I got up and I went to the bench, and I just told the coach, I go, I'm done for the day. And I was done playing hockey after that.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're just done, period.
I joke. I go, I played 3 years and 2 neck braces, and I was done. And then figure skating, by then it became cool because now I'm like 12. All my friends in the rink were starting to get, interested in girls, and they realized I had more access than they ever would in their lives.
I could say that. Yep.
So.
Yeah, it's like male cheerleaders,
Changes, yeah.
I'd be on the football field. I'd look over and be like 16 female cheerleaders and be like that one dude, super fired up, holding them up, looking up their skirts. I'd be like, I was like, man, maybe that guy's got it figured out, Yeah. Here we are smashing heads against each other trying to impress these girls. He's just holding them up.
Yeah. And we're not allowed, I think there was that code that the players weren't allowed to date, the cheerleaders, especially college and pro.
Well, my wife was a cheerleader.
Oh, so good for you. Well done.
Broke the code.
Yeah, my wife was a cheerleader too in high school.
Yeah. So. Yeah, you know what? I was a football player. She was a cheerleader at SC, but we did not meet that way. She was just sitting outside of Starbucks on campus, and tall blonde. I walked by and I was like, I think I should go talk to her. Mm-hmm. That's how that met. And so the football cheerleader thing's cliche, but it wasn't that. And yes, there was kind of an unspoken, like, it was more unspoken from them, like, we're not interested in dating you guys because we know who you are, but no, it was all good. I want to go back. You went through that period as a kid where you kind of had medical issues. Did they ever figure out what that was?
Yeah. So, kind of fast forward through all those competitive years. I went 4 years undefeated, which is pretty good for a last place guy. And then at the end of that, I was 25 years old, flat broke because I couldn't make any money skating really because it was amateur rules. So I decided
no NIL back then.
No NIL back then. No nothing. But I delivered pizzas, and I would do whatever I could. We would get a little per diem kind of thing for doing the skating exhibitions, and so that kept me in gas.
No, but they were pretty hardcore about amateur status, especially if you wanted to compete in the Olympics.
Exactly. So there was no money to be made. So I decided that all I can do now is lose. So I turned pro. I joined the Ice Capades, and I did that for 2 years. And then the new owner didn't want any men, only wanted women. But I showed myself to be reliable enough where IMG came and said, would you help us build a tour? And I go
IMG?
International Management Group. Huh. Mark McCormack and all those guys.
Sorry, I'm thinking like the IMG Academy.
Yeah, it's the same people.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, but this was when it was Nick Ballatieri's Tennis Academy.
Yeah, because it started as a tennis academy, and then all of a sudden they're like, man, there's a lot of parents who spend a lot of money in this.
Yeah, so IMG started in golf with, I think Mark McCormack had Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus, and Gary Player as clients. He invented sports marketing.
I did not know that.
So then they went into tennis.
I heard about the tennis.
Then they went into television production.
Basically, the start of the sport where it's like the richest players, the richest people love golf. The next richest is tennis, and where we follow the money.
Then they got into television production, TWI, and then they started expanding into other sports, just as natural progression. So they got into winter sports, and so they had a division of winter sports, and I became a client. And Bob Kane was he ran the tennis division for a while, and then he signed me because I didn't really want to sign with anybody else because I was a huge Bjorn Borg fan, and he managed Bjorn Borg. So I thought, oh, this is really cool. I'd be in the same stable, and I might get to meet him someday and all that stuff. So Bob became my manager, and then 2 years in, he just said, will you help us build a tour? Because you're not going back to Capes. They don't want you. And I said, let me check my calendar. It's like, you're so unemployed right now.
Yeah, you're free.
So we built Stars on Ice, and I was in year 11 of Stars on Ice, and I was diagnosed with cancer. Got through that, went back, and toured for another few years. But it was on the 3rd anniversary of my diagnosis that I met my wife in Memphis backstage. We were benefiting St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, and Tony Thomas was, Danny Thomas's son, was a good friend, and he invited Tracy as his guest to the show. I thought it was a date. It wasn't. And we met briefly backstage, and then somehow miraculously she was living in Tennessee. I was living in LA. We just met for 10 minutes. Then I
Sparks flew, emotions ran high.
Pardon?
Sparks flew, emotions ran high.
No, my heart jumped a little bit. And I was totally toxic. I was like, I just survived cancer. I got all these probably fertility issues because it was testicular cancer. I'm just, my life's weird. I fail at relationships. I'm just off limits. I'm just going to play golf, live my life, make money, and just enjoy myself. And then I met her, and it was like, oh, yeah, I was different. Then I thought I'd never see her again because I thought it was Tony's date. So Tony and I are playing golf in L.A., and he's lovey-dovey on the phone. I go, is that the girl from Memphis? He goes, Tracy? I go, I don't remember her name. He goes, she was my guest. That wasn't a date. And I go, oh, okay. He goes, did you like her? And I go, yeah, I think so. And he goes, I think she's moving to L.A. this week. And I go, can I get her number? And he goes, yeah, I'll get it for you. Then I go to a barbecue, like right after that. And my favorite caddy at Sherwood Country Club, this guy named Jimmy, is a funny guy, big personality. And he goes, hey, my cousin was supposed to come tonight, made other plans. And I go, who's your cousin? And he goes, Tracy. I've known Jimmy for 3 years. He never brought Tracy up. It's like still going through processing that. But so we left a message for Tracy because he had her number. And then 3 weeks later, she was back. We went back and forth. She was back. And we went out on our first date, and we've been together ever since.
That's awesome.
But it's funny that in that, going to answer your question, I had to lay that groundwork. We had our first son, and first time I saw flesh in my own flesh. Like holding Aiden, his head was in my hand, his feet were right here, and I'm looking at my eyes. They're my eyes.
Yeah, he does. Yeah,
I'm freaking out because I've never seen anything like this before, and I was just like, this is amazing. I get to be a dad. I never thought this would happen. Go back out on the road, doing a show in New York, Madison Square Garden, my favorite building, everything's great. And I'm just like, what am I doing here? And then I go the next day, I go to Long Island. We're doing the show again. And I'm like, what am I doing here? So that was my last show of the tour. I went back, skated every day for 2 weeks like I was competing in the Olympics. And the last day, I hit every jump I tried. Backflips were floating. Everything was just perfect. And I'm driving up, from Camarillo back down towards my home. And I said, that's it. I'm not going back. And I got to see Aiden's first steps and hear his first words. And I got to be a full-time dad. And I got symptomatic again. And I was like, no. And so I went in, and they gave me a head scan, and they said, you have a brain tumor. And so Tracy and Aiden were arriving that day to Cleveland for a benefit I was hosting. And she gets out, I pull up to the hotel as they're checking in, and she goes, what's going on? I go, I'll tell you upstairs. She goes, okay. So we get upstairs. Aiden's banging the phone in the cradle, and she said, what's going on? I go, I have a brain tumor. And she just grabbed both my hands and started to pray. And it was the most powerful, significant moment in my entire life. And I've had big moments, like really big moments. Yeah. But that one was it wrecked me in a really cool way. And so we had to figure out what it was, and they couldn't do it through scanning and everything else. They had to go in through the top of my head and take a biopsy of it, which is scary because a lot of things can go really wrong.
It sounds
They tell you all
scary.
the bad stuff.
Yeah.
You could lose memory. You could lose speech. You could lose motor
They
function.
make you, they present you with 80 pages of papers
Yeah.
in size 3 font that you're supposed to sign, acknowledging you've read them.
Yes. So, you sign everything, and I wake up, and it's 10:20. I know who I am, where I am, why I'm there. And I went, wiggled my toes, and I go, test. I go, okay, I guess it was successful. And doctor came in smiling, and Tracy came in smiling. We know what it is, and we think you're going to be just fine. And they handed my wife a readout of what this tumor was.
Yeah.
And it said, she goes, oh my goodness, listen to this. Craniopharyngiomas are brain tumors that are usually detected early in a child's life due to a lack of growth and development.
Yeah, because I was thinking about like the question of like, what did you have when you were a kid, and how many years was it? 20, 30 years later?
Oh, it was, let me see, 4 to 30. It was 34 years later.
So in not theory, I mean, I guess it seems pretty factual that you had this almost your whole life.
But the years that I skated, it just didn't do any mischief.
Just
And
dormant or something.
Yeah, I must have hit my head hard enough on the ice a few times.
Yeah, I was
where
gonna
it just
say, or
beat it
the
into
opposite.
submission.
Yeah, just beat it back.
So I had gamma knife radiation, which messed with all my hormonal stuff. So I had to learn how to live again in a different way. And then 6 years later, it came back.
Did.
And that was one surgery that became 9. It just didn't go as planned. And I lost my right eye for a couple days. But throughout...
Well, you said you lost your right eye. I was like, man, that thing looks so real.
Real? No, I mean, I lost
I've been
sight.
sitting here for hours. Like, we had lunch. I was like,
Yeah.
credit to whoever put that fake thing in.
Yeah, I lost sight in it for about a day and a half. They got it back. They got aggressive. But it was just, that was a rough period. So that was 2010, first brain tumor diagnosis, 2010, second brain tumor diagnosis. 2016, I went in for just a scan, and they said it was back.
Mm.
This time it was different. Everything in my spirit said, get strong. I was like, this is weird. I've never had anything happen like that before. And I didn't know what it meant. And they're giving me a medical option, and they're giving me a surgical option. We could do the surgery again. It's going to be complicated. You're going to have to take everything apart and blah, blah, blah. And I go, okay, thank you. And they go, what do you want to do? And I go, I'm going to go home and get strong. And they said, what does that look like? I said, I have no idea.
Right.
None.
But that's just what you felt or heard, or
Yeah, I just felt it in the back of my mind, just get strong. Don't worry about this, just get strong. So I didn't know if it was physically strong, emotionally, intellectually, or spiritually strong. So I just went home and decided to do all the
I
above.
was gonna say do all of them.
And I went back, and 3 months later, it hadn't grown. Went back 3 months later, it shrunk 45%. Went back 3 months later, it shrunk another 25%. Since then, it's grown, shrank, and grown and shrank. And then I heard Tony Robbins talking about his brain tumor, because he had the opposite problem. His caused uncontrollable growth.
Yeah, because I think like whatever the gland that releases.
Acromegaly. Yeah, he had uncontrollable growth.
Yeah.
And he goes, as soon as I figured out what it was, I said, oh, okay. I'm not gonna acknowledge it anymore. And so it gave me confidence to not acknowledge it anymore. So I just leave it alone. And so if I get symptomatic again, of course, I'll go in and check it out because I have options. But meantime, I'm just getting strong with my life.
What did you do to get physically, mentally, emotionally strong? Like, what are some of the activities or actions you took?
I think the biggest one was just not to feel like a victim.
Like victim mentality, like a mindset.
Mindset. It was like, the cool thing about it was, like, if you just go back and retrace your steps, like, I was born with this thing.
Mm-hmm.
How am I going to be mad at it? It taught me how to be independent all those years I was in the hospital. It put me on the ice. It gave me an identity. It gave me everything. How am I going to be mad at a brain tumor? So it's like, okay, so stronger. I walked out of neuro ICU 3 times, packed my own bag, walked out of neuro ICU 3 times. I hope it's a record.
It's not a metaphor. You literally walked out.
Walked out of neuro ICU. So it just comes down to like, okay, mentally, Like I'm not a victim, and this has been an incredibly unique blessing in my life.
How many times did you have to go back to that? Like where, okay, I'm not a victim, and you're like, okay, I got it. And then did you ever find yourself wake up one morning or multiple times where that strength, that mental strength of I'm not a victim, like I can't be mad at this, went away, and you actually found yourself slipping into that victim mentality, into that like, woe is me?
Not so much about that. It's a lot of it is, your whole identity gets wrapped up in what you did.
As opposed to who you are.
Yeah. And I had some really good sage wisdom shared with me early on that I can share with you, but it's fighting the imposter syndrome. It's like people think I'm this, and I don't. I just I put my pants on one leg at a time. There's nothing special about me. I'm just a guy.
What about spandex?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it doesn't look the same now as it did back then.
No,
but
it
it's just that
the
it's
best
like
of us.
it's fighting imposter syndrome, and it's just stepping into your new reality of what is my identity now, and how did I get here, and how do I manage it?
Why do you think you were so successful with that mentality shift? Like, I mean, you're diagnosed with this brain tumor, and then cancer, right?
Mhm.
Later, but just brain tumor. I think a lot of people would probably, for a period of time at least, feel sorry for themselves, but it doesn't sound like you really did much of that. Like,
Well, it was cool. It is what it is, whenever it takes. That was our motto, the first brain tumor. And it was really cool. I was watching Sports Center one day, and Ray Lewis was on there.
Mhm.
And I actually got to share this with him last year. I met him, and he was doing a interview. T.O. had just come into the stadium and mocked him and did all of his stuff, and just tried to bait him, and the reporter was trying to bait him again, just to say, T.O., he came into your house and he sort of was messing with you. He goes, how do you respond to that? And he goes, I love T.O. He goes, I love T.O. He's a talented, great player. And yeah, he's a funny guy, and he's going to do his thing, and that's all right. And he goes, I pray for T.O. I pray for him. He goes, he doesn't know where I've been or what my life is. He doesn't know anything about me. He goes, but I'm here to tell you, as deep as I've dug down low, that's as high as I'm going to go.
Yeah, Ray's got a way with words.
But that was when I didn't know how I was going to deal with this brain tumor. And it gave me a gust of wind in my sails like nothing else. And that became sort of the mantra. It was like, as deep as I've dug down low, that's as high as I'm going to go. And it kind of was like everything else I'd endured, the illness, losing my mom, being a habitual loser, all those things, it's just a springboard for opportunity to be something else. And so, I was able to share that with him last year, and I saw his eyes get a little moist, which was kind of a cool thing. And he just gave me a great big hug. And it's just, we don't know what our words will do, in any given moment, but it's an opportunity to minister and bless people.
Yeah, I got to effectively spend a night with Ray Lewis in Miami at a event, but like we were hanging out in the back. It was me and my brothers. There was like a Pro Bowl, and we were just talking to him, and I think we were like, man, fans kept coming up, and he was so gracious to them, and man, you're so good with these fans. Does it ever bother you? He's like, no, man, you win the fans, you win your freedom. He's like, that's my customer, that's my client. Yeah. He's like, it wouldn't be good business to send him away.
No, that's what I don't understand.
Oh, he was amazing, and he had such a great smile, such great energy.
Yeah, he's awesome. And really, if you're familiar, people just want to touch your heart for a second. That's it. And if you're obstructing, it gets awkward, weird, and it leaves a negative kind of memory to it. So it's like, come on, I'm right here.
All right. So speaking of physical, mental, emotional strength, and not being a loser, you said, "Oh, I was a loser," but there was 4 years. You touched on this but you kind of skipped right over. It 4 years of not losing, and that takes some physical strength, mental and emotional strength for sure. Like, why'd you have that run where you just were not beatable? What was it? What led to that success?
Well, the hip injury and recovery and getting the jump down put me a little bit ahead of the class, so I was the first one to put that jump into a short program and long program in the same competition. So I jumped up And I got to the 81 season, and it was me and David Santee, and he was wonderkind, who was just genius. And I got close enough to him in figures where I could beat him in freestyle. And so I won the nationals in San Diego in 1981. And it was like, I can't believe I'm the national champion. This is the coolest thing ever. And then a month later, I was going to be competing at the World Championships, and I wrecked my back on a jump in a run through. And I wasn't able to jump until I got to the Worlds in Hartford. It was a U.S. hosted World Championship. And I was third going into the long program. And for whatever reason, everything just felt good. And I probably had one of the best technical performances I've ever had. And I won the World Championship. And I'm on the podium, and podiums are weird places for me, especially because I process things. I'm not just there to raise my hand and go crazy. And I was like, man, this must be the lowest place in figure skating history if last place guy is standing on this podium winning a World Championship gold medal. And it's like, I've got to figure out a way to live up to this. And I drove myself crazy. Like my coach had a hard time managing me because I was afraid to take the ice because I could never do that again. And it's like, who am I? And it's just like, I'm not a world champion. I'm a last place guy. I'm not this guy. And I just can't do this again. There's no way. And it was too soon. If I want to win an Olympics, that's not for another 3 years. And it's like, this is crazy. I just blew it.
You're like a head case almost?
Yeah, I was a total head case. And so my coach was really great. He got me through it, and we would do things. And I got to the nationals the next year, and I was still a little crazy. I made a mistake in the short program, and I have a law. I never miss in the short program, ever, never. It's unacceptable. And I missed the easiest jump in the short program and came in second in the short program because everybody else missed two, but one guy beat me. And I got to the long program, and my coach said, will you talk to this guy? And I go, who? And he goes, he's a sports psychologist. I go, sure. And so I meet this guy, and he's sort of like the granddaddy of all sports psychologists. And he goes, what's going on? I go, well, expectations are high, and there's a lot of people feel like pressure to please people. And, I got to represent my coach and my club, and I'm really nervous about, da, da, da. And he looked at me and he smiled, and he said, F him. I'm like, what?
That's simple, huh?
And he said it probably 12 more times until it really got in. And I was so uncomfortable, I started laughing.
But it sunk in.
Yeah. It was like, okay, it's me out there. I'm the only one that's out there.
Yeah.
So I skated a good long, and it was miraculous because there was a hole about as big as like a plate, and it was like deep. And I missed it by about an inch. If I would have stepped in that hole, it would have changed I would have broken my ankle, and I would have lost the competition. Life would be different. But I missed it by an inch. And I won the nationals, and then I went to the Worlds in Copenhagen, and I won. And I'm looking, and the podium had flipped. The guy that was seventh was now second. The guy that was second was now seventh, and everybody was jumping and messing around. And it hit me on the podium that I'm not competing against the history of the sport or every sentient being on the planet. I'm competing against knuckleheads just like me. I mean, they're just guys that are just trying to win. They're just trying. If I can stay ahead of these guys for 2 more years.
Yeah. Some of them are injured. Some of them are in a mental bad place. Some of them don't have confidence.
Yeah.
Some are
and
emotional.
It was flipping. And so next year I went to nationals, and Brian Boitano was coming up, and Brian Orser was coming up, and I beat him, was able to defend in Helsinki. And then I went into the Olympics as the prohibitive favorite.
And
Sarajevo.
Yeah. 84.
84. And I won the figures, which was I didn't expect that at all. I beat probably the best figures guy in the history of the sport. Found a way to do it.
How did you just kind of hit your stride? Was it just did you heading into the Olympics in practice, did you notice that everything was clicking,
It was, I knew I was getting better at figures. And it was, the tracings were getting tighter. The loops were on one line. The turns were perfectly clean. And I was excited. And and when you get excited about something, you're doing well at something, you want to do it more and more and more and more. So I figured, and I did the math, because the way the sport was scored back then, if I'm top 3, only top 3 in figure short and long, mathematically I can't lose because the guys that were great in freestyle were terrible in figures or not strong in figures. I hate to say terrible. And so they couldn't catch me. And so by the time I got to the long program, I won the figures, second short, broken tie. Brian Orser beat me in the short. And then I knew he was going to beat me in the long because he was like next gen.
Yeah.
And so he threw a clinic at me in the long and beat me bad. And, but the problem was he had to win the long and I had to be fifth in order to lose the gold medal. And this would be the first time I was going to lose a long program in 4 years.
So you're probably going to be second, right?
No, if I'm second, yeah, I win.
That's what I'm
saying. Third, I win. If I'm fourth, I win.
Yeah.
So I was second, won. And then I got all these endorsement opportunities, but it was amateur sport back then.
Can I call timeout?
Yeah.
What was that like when you finished second or whatever the place was where you knew at that moment, okay, I just won a gold medal?
I wanted it to be the best performance I ever gave, and it wasn't. So I put a chip on my shoulder. Like I
dissatisfied almost.
I was dissatisfied. And Dick Button was the commentator, and Al Michaels, and they kept trying. Oh, it's great. No, you were great. You were great. I go, no, I really wasn't. So
did you look back and maybe you say, man, I wish I enjoyed that moment?
It was perfect because I made 2 mistakes in my long program, and it put a fire under my tail because a month later, the World Championships were in Canada, and I had to beat Brian Orser's head-to-head, face-to-face in his home country for the 4th world title. Because I got all these endorsement opportunities, but I figured the world title will last me a lifetime. The money's going to go away in a couple weeks, so I'd rather have the title. So I went to Canada and I won the figures again. I beat him in short. And then of course he threw the clinic at me in long program again. And I won the 4th world title. And I got through that 4-year period undefeated. For last place guy, it's pretty good, right? But it was one of those things where it hasn't happened since. It's 41 years ago. Isn't that crazy?
That someone has
gone the 4 years without at least one defeat. Hasn't gone from Olympics to the World Championship after the Olympics, undefeated. And even somebody as great as Nathan Chen, he had an oops at Skate America and he came in.
And you just didn't have that type of, you may not have skated your perfect long or short, but like you just didn't have an oops.
There was a strategy that really held up.
So your strategy was don't try something that's so difficult to create that?
No, it was just like stay in your lane, be who you are.
Yeah.
But, break it up a little bit so people don't get bored with what you're doing and show a fresh face every year because you're still being judged. But it was really cool that when I got done with the Olympics, I went back to Denver and I trained in relative isolation. And now there's a parade and a private plane picking me up and there's all these things being thrown at me. And I'm the Olympic gold medalist in figure skating. And it's like, that's odd. Still doesn't feel right. And the governor called me into his office and I thought I was, photo op type of thing. Right. Okay. I'll come in. So, I get into his office, we're in a jacket and tie and all dressed up, respect the office. And he shut the door behind me and it's just him and me. He said, have you ever heard of hometown hero syndrome? I go, nope. And I go, what is that? And he goes, well, basically, I just first want to say that my wife met you at the parade and she said, you're a really nice young man. I just felt like something, I just want to share this with you. And I go, okay. He goes, hometown hero syndrome is basically if you're the quarterback of the high school football team and you throw a big bomb at the end of the game to win the state championship and everybody carries you off the field on their shoulders, you think that your whole life is going to be that way. And a lot of people get destroyed by that moment. He goes, I want you to enjoy the fruits of your labor, but I just want you to understand that this one day will come to an end and you're going to be just a normal guy like everybody else.
That's some very wise words by that guy.
And I said, this was really important. I need to hang on to this. So that week, I was asked by my orthopedic surgeon, I couldn't afford healthcare, so he kind of treated me when I got injured.
It's outside the statute of limitations.
Yeah, no, it's just, yeah. So he treated me for free, and he said, the only thing I ask is that you come to the Paralympic banquet and speak. So I said, of course, I'd love to do that. He goes, bring your medal. So I'm wearing my Olympic team gear and and I have my medal around my neck and I walk into the ballroom. And this is right after I talked to the governor. And I see every description of human being wearing the same medal as me without sight, without arms, without legs, without. I'm able-bodied. What I did was like, okay. What they did was superhuman. It was spectacular. And I was offended that I would ever think that I did anything special, especially after seeing these guys. So my Olympic gold medal lived in a brown paper bag in the bottom of my underwear drawer for 8 years until I could get rid of it. I hated it. I never wanted to see it again.
Because you just thought you weren't worthy of it?
I just felt like
what you did was not actually that hard?
It was an idol, and it was going to prevent me from doing anything next.
Yeah.
And the governor, he gave me permission to set sail. And I realized that's done. That's over. What's next? And so...
never rolled up to the bar, sat down, had your gold medal hanging around the neck like, what's up? No? Not your style?
No, especially after, I was given perspective of this is a moment in time.
Yeah, you did something that, a lot of people in my family are athletes, and a bit more important, I've been around so many, and we've talked about this on the show a lot. So many of my teammates are just athletes in general. Obviously, football is probably something I'm more familiar with than most of the other sports. They can't move on. They peaked at, whether it was 21 in college or 31 in the NFL, you peak in money, you peak in physical form and all that. But really, so much value in our society is it's fame, it's affirmation. Like, oh wow, you're special, you're important, your life has meaning and value to people, like all material things, but it feels real. And then it starts fading, and I always say they get confused that the value of their life is not who they are as people, it's what they do. And when what they do is taken away, they go, well, I don't have value. And really, really sad. I don't know if you saw 2 days ago, a receiver took his life from LSU who's going to go in the draft because he got in trouble with the law. He got in a car accident, hit somebody, and I think the gentleman passed away and a warrant out for his arrest, and he turned himself in, and he realized he wasn't going to go to the NFL. He wasn't going to be able to play football. And I think he took his own life. This is Kyron Lacey, I want to say is his name. And you see that with, and a guy I actually knew, Junior Seau. If you remember that name, it was kind of your era. Junior Seau was incredible. Yeah. San Diego, he was an SC guy, just incredible. And it wasn't a year or two after his playing career was over that he also took his life. And, that's the very drastic end of the spectrum of not being able to move on. Most people just suffer in silence and they turn to pills or addiction and depression, but you just put in a bag and that was it.
You struggle, right? Fame is unnatural. Notoriety is unnatural. All of that is unnatural. Especially when you train in relative isolation and all of a sudden you become a public person. It's really hard to kind of deal with it. But I just try to pay attention. I heard Barry Gibb from the Bee Gees. You remember the old? Yeah.
In life.
So he said something one time, and they said, "How have you been able to sustain, just the test of time? Your music is still relevant today as it was in the '60s." He's going through this whole thing, and he just said, "Well, I've learned that if you can survive first fame, you're probably going to be okay." And I remembered that, and I thought, if I can get through this transition, I'm probably going to be okay. And it's taken on, when Ice Capades let me go, I thought, well, I'm done. And then I got an opportunity to build Stars on Ice, and I founded this touring company that's right now is in Japan doing its thing. And I don't own the company. I just helped them get it started, but it's sort of my child, But I don't take ownership of it either. I say it's no longer my responsibility. It's the skaters to make it great. Go for it. And I've got kids to raise, and I've got life transitions to figure out. And, what I learned throughout those, especially those first years it was confirmed in my Bible study last year when we're going through the Bible and we're talking about different things. And said, if you really want to see the darkest part of someone's character, give them fame and or money. And there's a time where it gets ugly for a minute, and then you've got to just sort of
Or alcohol.
Yeah.
You always say like, oh, money and alcohol change people. And it's like, nah, it kind of just shows you who they really are.
Yeah.
Fame too.
Yeah. It's not easy, but if you're able to manage it properly, and
you've managed adversity really well, adopted, for a period of years as a kid, physical challenges that at the time they didn't know it ended up being a brain tumor.
They had no capacity to find it back then. If they
no
did,
capacity.
I'd have a giant C in the side of my head.
Overcoming, being bullied on the playground, being small, whatever, in an era where bullying was real. Nowadays, it's more of a cyber thing, but or social media. But your mom passing away relatively young, finishing last place, then having the brain tumor. Then later you get testicular cancer. I'm not laughing.
No,
you're laughing, not me.
Testicular cancer came first.
Because you're laughing, I can laugh now.
That came first.
Okay, that
was
first.
97. And I made it cool before Lance Armstrong, by the way, to have testicular cancer.
Yeah, that's true.
But it was just, the fear.
Hopefully it's not, you weren't on, what was Lance Armstrong on, PEDs?
Yeah.
Hopefully you weren't on him. That's why you're such a great ice skater.
Yeah, right. I'm going to get
traded for some testicular cancer.
I wouldn't know what to do with that stuff. Now I'm happily, just let me live a normal life. Give me all of it.
Whatever it takes.
But
so testicular cancer, then you had the tumor
chemo
symptoms.
And a 38 staple surgery. And I came back a few months later.
The audiences listen to this episode saying, man, he had all these things. And every time it seems like he responded just from a mindset, mentality, just so strong and positive and like, yeah, okay, let's go. And how does someone develop that? How does someone get that?
It's sort of a muscle, and I realized I was given a lot more than I gave, there's always something there. And I think that's why my faith has become a center point in my life, is that I just realized that everything is a gift, and I was given the right words at the right time, the right perspective at the right time. And whether I generated it or it came from somebody else, I don't know if I generated anything. Like, I could have decided on that walk after I found out my mom was dead, I could have gone to drugs and alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a buddy of mine in high school do it. Natural. Like, you hurt, so you want to hurt more, right? And I've seen, even now, dear friends that have had life kick them hard straight to the bottle. And it's like, I don't know. I just felt like on those times where I was given sort of a mindset of, no, you're going to do this. And no, you're going to focus on this. And no, you're going to get rid of that. It was just so powerful. And I gave a TED Talk here in Nashville a few years ago. And the only thing my spirit would let me talk about was suffering. Like, that's a downer, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, what? I want to talk about something else. And then it was like, okay, go ahead, look up on TED, who's talked about suffering. So I went on TED and I just put suffering in the search and there was nothing. And I was like, really? The one thing we all experience and nobody's talking about
Nobody's spoken about it, huh?
So I talked about suffering in its many forms and everything. I talked about my mom and her suffering. And I talked about, the sort of the comparison disorder that most people have as suffering. Is you live in a $500,000 house and it's great, right? But you're surrounded by $1 million houses, they suffer, right? It's, it can be a comparison disorder.
Comparison disorder. I never heard it framed or labeled that way.
Yeah,
but
it can be like something is like that can be a cause for suffering. And I realized that in any opportunity or any time that you're facing a period of suffering, it's kind of like Yogi Berra's old line, when you get to the fork in the road, take it, right? And it's a fork, right? But it's not a fork like this. It's a fork like this, right? So you can succumb.
Like a vertical fork. Yeah.
You can just succumb, like it's an up or down, right? You can succumb, just let it take its, like, I'll just crash and I'll burn and I'll just do this thing. You can adapt, and that's just staying right here, not going up or down, just staying right there and adapting to whatever your new situation is, whatever your new normal is. Or you can start the work of the climb. And I think that's what I did after I lost my mom. I just decided to start climbing and being what she always dreamed I could be.
Yes.
And in that, when that happens to you once, it's kind of like, let's just do that again.
Yeah.
You know,
It worked the last time.
yeah.
Well, speaking of climbing and being I guess the best version of yourself, Scott Hamilton Cares Foundation. I mean, you guys are doing really impactful work. Share with the audience what that is and, kind of what your focus is there.
Yeah. So when I lost my mom, I decided I was going to try to be a fundraiser, and I was going to see if I could fund research that would solve her problem, because there was no
Was it breast
solution.
cancer?
She had metastatic melanoma breast cancer.
Okay.
So it was already kind of metastasizing everywhere. And so I would fundraise where I could, and I would do all these shows to raise money for cancer research, and it became kind of my thing. And then 20 years after I lost her, I'm diagnosed with cancer, and now I know what it feels like to go through it, to go through the diagnosis, to go through the chemo, to go through all the stuff that goes with chemo, to go through a major surgery. And I go, we need to do better. We have to do better. And so the comeback show I did in Los Angeles, I made sure that there was money in the budget that I could give the Cleveland Clinic $100,000 as a thank you for what they did for me. And they said, well, thank you. And I go, but I want to do more. And so we created CARES, the Cancer Alliance for Research, Education, and Survivorship. And in that, we're going to make cancer better for everybody going through it. So it started with me coming up with an idea for a mentorship program where I was flying blind and my mom was flying blind. Nobody that's going through this really knows what they're doing. And so we set up a mentorship program where we pair newly diagnosed patients with survivors. It's called the Fourth Angel. And that's still going on in Cleveland. And they've expanded it to caregivers and pediatric caregivers. The next thing I did was I was the organ grinder's monkey for 5 years, just raising money however I could, for a website called chemocare.com. And it explains everything about chemotherapy, how it works, how it's administered, all the side effects, how they're managed in 8th grade English and Spanish. Because when I was diagnosed, I did what everybody does. I went on Dr. Google and I found 12-syllable words, sometimes 3 to a sentence. It's just basically saying you have no capacity to understand what you're going through. And I said, no, I'm not the only one that's too dumb to be sick. And we got to do this. So ChemoCare, we launched it and we just said, we're just going to let it do its work. And I was out by the airport giving a speech to some oncology nurses recently. And I mentioned ChemoCare, and a couple of them looked up. And I go, how many of you use ChemoCare for your patients? Every hand went up. And I couldn't stop crying. It was just like, really? Wow. And then that's the survivorship and the education component. The research component is based on basically, because a lot of people don't understand research, or they just feel like, I can't see it, I can't measure it, I can't touch it, I can't. My cancer 50 years ago had a 5% survival rate. Now it has a 95% survival rate.
Why is that?
Research.
Larry
Einhorn in Indiana figured it out. Research scientist. So I decided that when we take CARES from the Cleveland Clinic and become an independent foundation, and people, if they want to know more about us, scottcares.org, we decided that we're just going to fund research, but we're not going to fund just research. We're going to fund an immune response to the cancer. So it's only immunotherapy, targeted therapies, treat the cancer, spare the patient harm. So our cancer ribbon's upside down, because I spent most of my professional career upside down. But it's like we want to turn cancer from being fear and dread and, to hope and joy and confidence and celebrating a return to life. And so we put our stake in the ground for immunotherapy. And 3 years later, the first immunotherapy drug hit the market in a big way. So we know we're right. And so in the last 10 years, we've had 94 partnerships in the cancer space. And on the 40th anniversary of my Olympic gold medal, this is fun, I'm with Brian Orser, the silver medalist, and Joe Sabovchik, the bronze medalist. And we're just having this thing together where my foundation threw a fundraising thing in New York City. And so they came to be together on our night because we were really good friends, really close. And on that night, I was able to share that a research program that we funded at Mass General in honor of my mom.
Mm-hmm.
It was a immunotherapy metastatic melanoma project that we funded 3 years ago. I was able to announce on that night that it went into clinical trial.
What is immunotherapy like versus?
It's an immune response. It's teaching our body, like right now as we're talking,
Mm-hmm.
our body is recognizing dead, broken, or mutant cells and saying, no, get out.
Yeah, get out.
And our immune system is protecting us from all that and just getting rid of it. Cancer tricks our bodies into sort of like, support me, give me everything you've got, take away my waste, give me more food, give me more growth, give me more. And it's uncontrollable and the immune system can't detect it. But if we can teach our body's immune system to recognize the cancer,
Mm-hmm.
then it's going to say, you don't belong here, get out. And so in that, it becomes like any other disease. It's not like a total parasitic thing where it just takes over the body.
Any other disease, your white blood cells would say, wait, you're a disease, I'm going to kill you and discard of you.
Mm-hmm. So
as
CAR
opposed
T,
to current treatments for cancer, chemotherapy being like, we're just going to put chemicals in. It'll kill everything, but it'll kill the cancer cells first, ideally.
good stuff should grow back okay.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be a little different or a little diminished, but at least you're not suffering from cancer anymore. So the whole idea of immunotherapy is that like T-cell therapy was the first thing that came out, CAR T, and I'm on the board of advisors for the Moffitt Cancer Center in Tampa. And I heard the head of research, the CEO of Moffitt, saying, using CAR T platform, we are very confident that in the next 10 years, we will cure multiple myeloma. Now, I don't know if you've spent any time in the cancer world. I've never heard anybody say cure.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard them say, we will improve outcomes, we will extend life, but never cure. And I've known people that have succumbed to multiple myeloma, and it's a tough disease.
And so they feel they're getting closer.
Yeah. And then this last meeting I attended, his big report was, honestly, with the trajectory of everything that we're developing, I see a day in the very near future where no one dies of cancer.
That'll be a good day.
It's a gust of wind.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait to get back to work.
Well, there's some fantastic work you and your foundation are doing. And it sounds like they're not just raising money, which is great, but actually that money's going to treatments, I guess.
We're a collaborative organization.
Yeah.
So we work with cancer centers. We work with other foundations. We support everyone we can in all of the cities that we raise money in. And so in that, our core mission as a foundation is we'll give money to all these other people and we'll partner on certain research programs, but we don't believe that we'll ever be the answer. We're going to be a good citizen, a member of the community, and we're going to partner strategically with all of the right people to make sure the right research gets done. And that kind of makes us unique.
I was thinking about your son before we met, again, because, that's how I got to know you was through Aiden.
Yeah.
We, trained together and he's beating me up every week. And it's interesting. Like a figure skater's son's a fighter,
Probably pent up,
well,
anger from,
here's what I've learned about you, Scott, is in the last hour or two, is you're actually a fighter who just happened to figure skate.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah. Based on what you've overcome, you've been fighting your whole life, fighting and overcoming adversity. It's really inspiring, from really the moment you're born and multiple health issues at different stages of life, losing your mom, fighting to just overcome the, being, as you said, these were not my words, a failure, finishing last place or whatever. So you're just as much, if not more, a fighter than Aiden. You just happen to figure skate. You just happen to be pretty good at it.
Wow. All my injuries were self-inflicted. His maybe not so much.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the one who chooses to step in the ring. And so even though someone else is punching him, he's choosing to get punched.
Well, UFC is, I think, the only sport I know where you can completely dominate your opponent and still spend a week in the hospital.
That's right. Yeah. That is a good point. Even the winners have to go to the hospital usually. Well, I look forward to watching Aiden fight. I was telling you, there's a clip, Zach, you got to clip this into the podcast of Mark Zuckerberg standing next to the octagon as like, I don't know what fighter he was like part of the team, and he just keeps trying to like help. And grab, and he just like, eventually just puts his hands in his pocket. I said, Aiden, I'm your Zuckerberg. All right. When you make it to the UFC, like you got to let me be on the team. And I'm just good. Like nobody would be like, well, what does he do? It's like nothing. I don't, there's nothing I can offer. But like, I just want to hang out and like kind of be part of the crew. So he said yes. And I'd like.
Oh, he meant it too.
Yeah.
He's a good kid. He's an honest kid. And
we have to put a photo. You know, my only concern in his career as a fighter, it's not speed. It's not strength. It's not skill. He's just too damn pretty.
Yeah. Not for
He's
long.
too good looking. You know, you look at most of these fighters, like they had to fight because there's no other way. But like he's kind of a pretty boy. He's a good looking kid.
I'll have to get that for his mom.
I'll have to get that photo. That photo you show me.
Yeah,
he's a jacked, muscular, little blonde hair, blue eyed kid. Now he's starting to get the cauliflower.
Oh yeah, his right ear's a mess. His left ear's a little bit better.
So I know he's proud of that.
Yeah, it's a sign of. But
I know he's got his first fight coming up in June. I'd love to be there, but I will be in Hawaii.
Nice.
Sorry, but
what island are you going to?
I think this time I'm going to Maui.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what's there now since it burned down.
Well, that was up on the northwest side. That was up on
you on the McKenna side?
I'm going to the down to Wailea. So. Okay. That part of the island was spared, thank God. But yeah, that was pretty brutal. What happened up in Lahaina? Just the winds, the way the buildings were constructed. Obviously, no water. You know, you see this in the Palisades. There was unfortunately a pattern of government incompetence in some of these cases. But I've never been in their shoes, so I don't want to pass too much judgment. But I'm excited to check out one of his fights with you one of these days.
It'll be a blast. I'm excited for him. I know. When you see how hard somebody works for something, you just want it to, at least if he doesn't win, I just want it to be so valuable for his life.
It's going to be valuable no matter. He's going to win.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about him winning. I'm just, it will be. I feel for the guy he's fighting. I don't know anything about him, but I'm excited to see how far he can take it.
Well, Sean thinks he's got enough talent to go.
He does. He does. It just, again, I'm banking on him to go so I could just, again, just trying to be Zuck.
Right? Yeah, I just want a free ticket. I can't afford those UFC tickets. Those are expensive. Crazy.
Yeah, that's what I told Aiden. I said, you make it to Vegas for like a pay-per-view. We'll take the jet. Like, all right, yeah, it's on me, but he's got a ways to go. But anyway, no, I mean it. You're a fighter who just happened to figure skate, but I really appreciate you doing awesome work. I very much hope you're correct in that one day nobody has to die from cancer, but
I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if I didn't believe it.
Yeah.
And just the fact that my mom's cancer, which was, they were getting better at treating it, but there's a few no hope cancers that we've got to just get behind and do the research. And man, it's for a lot of people, the diagnosis, it depends on where and how far along it is.
Yeah.
And early detection is still the best way to survive cancer and just avoid things that, anything that cancer likes, just get rid of it.
What are some of those things?
Sugar.
Oh, damn it. I just ate like 10 jelly beans with you downstairs at Hall's.
Well, I mean, if you're going through it.
Okay.
Right?
All right. Fair play.
Yeah. And cancer really doesn't like an alkaline environment. So get rid of the acidic stuff and just start drinking a lot of high pH water and just, there's all kinds of things. B17 is another thing that helps a lot.
B17.
It's, again, it's a supplement, but it's just little things like that you can do to kind of help yourself.
Good.
Yeah.
Wait, and they can find more information for everybody listening. You'd like to learn more about Scott's work, support his foundation, visit scotthamilton.com and also scottcares.org.
Yeah, scottcares.org is where our foundation
Follow Scott
website.
on Instagram and X for updates and inspiration. And as always, if you got value from this episode, be sure to follow me, Kyle Matthews, on Instagram, LinkedIn, X, and check out more of our conversations right here on the Matthews Mentality Podcast. Scott, this was fun. We're going to hang out at my house. I'm going to have you and Aiden over for a little barbecue.
I love that.
Show you what I've done to the place.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Did I tell you he almost bought my house?
Yeah, we looked at it.
Yeah.
It was just a little out of my price range, but yeah. But what you've done, I heard Aiden said you just completely.
Yeah, I was rubbing it in Aiden's face. He came by. I was like, oh, sorry, I beat your dad out for this house. You could have had this. And then I was like, don't beat me up.
Yeah.
But no, I'll have
It's
you
a
guys over.
beautiful area of Franklin.
Yeah, it's so peaceful. It's in the woods. It's quiet. We got so many mutual friends on that block.
Yeah.
We'll have a little block party, but thanks so much, and really appreciate you.
Oh, God bless you. Thank you.
You too.